We need it. Oxygen. It's why we breathe.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Small Biz Stories. And as you know, the deal by now, every week we bring you a guest that brings you, well, a new perspective on something as a small business owner, as an entrepreneur, or some insight that you can use on the receiving end of that. And this week's no exception. We've got Jeremy Bauer, a man after my own heart who cares about the environment. He is the founder of Givr Packaging, and he has a degree in paper science, which we're going to tap into. Hey, Jeremy, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, first of all, since I queued us up like that, talk to us. A degree in paper science? What does that even mean?
Yeah, so it's it's pretty rare. There's only like four schools that have it. The way I describe it to people and the way that the credentialing bodies of these schools see it is a chemical engineering degree. In fact, the paper science degree is not offered anymore. It's bioprocess and chemical engineering, but it's a paper specific engineering degree. Um, so like all of the pharmaceutical electives or petrochemical electives are taken out, and in their place is paper specific electives. Um, and so it's very heavy on the chemistry, on the math, on the you know manufacturing, except those are very specific to the paper industry.
Okay, I get it. And I can sort of kind of almost hang with you. I have a PhD where I did PhD level organic chemistry. And so I've learned a few things there, although I'm really, really rusty. Like the hamsters, I think those ones have died, but that's a whole other story.
Mine
So,
too.
right, we're on to different things. So
Yeah,
we
right.
like to give our listeners who are having just the auditory experience, be it on Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever they choose to listen to the podcast, the visual. Describe yourself and where you are, where you're seated in that right now, so our listeners kind of get a sense, the ones that don't have the visual experience. What are they looking at? Who are you?
I am a 6 foot tall bearded guy. Um, and right now I'm actually sitting in my home in Satellite Beach, Florida. But usually I'm at the office at our plant in Palm Bay, Florida. I'm wearing a flowery polo shirt, like a golf shirt, and I just got a haircut. I've never been asked this question before. This is an interesting one. What do you see that I missed?
Okay, listeners, he's giving off kind of like Travis Kelsey vibes. So that should kind of help, nail it there. And he's drinking his energy drink. And all right, so now we're going to dive into the show. Jeremy, I almost called you Travis. Jeremy, are you good at? Not you, your business, Giver Packaging or any of that, but what are you good at?
I'm good at contrarian thinking. I try to and explaining things in a unique way. I think those are two things that I'm equally good at. I like to find holes in whatever it is, processes, thinking, logic, whatever, and then sort of bridge the gap between those holes. And I think that translates to the business because I sort of like think as packaging or think about packaging in a way that is probably non-linear. So, I'm not thinking about it as like it's a square. I'm thinking about it as how is it going to be used by the person that it ultimately gets to. And that translates to some cool designs, and it makes us sort of novel in the way that we approach projects.
Well, I got that from you when I was looking you up and trying to prepare for this interview. And you really have I guess, a unique and expansive perspective when it comes to problem solving. And then you align that with purpose, right? Save the environment. I just
Mhm.
thought, like, wow, can't wait to have you on the show talking about how you came to be so involved and committed to sustainability. How did all that start?
It was a trend in my entire career that I really didn't notice until really I started talking about my career on podcasts. So I started out. selling or as an engineer working for an industrial enzyme company that was positioned as the sustainable alternative to petrochemicals. So they would sell chemicals to the paper industry. And at the time, I was just sort of thinking as myself as like, I'm an engineer selling chemicals. But looking back, I had just sort of ended up in the sustainable side of the industry. And then from there, I worked for a company that made boxes that was replacing wax boxes un, with water repellent boxes that were not wax. So that was also sustainable. And then, Givr is naturally at our core is a sustainable company. We try to offset all of our, or we do offset all of our carbon through offering the product that everybody needs.
Oh, this is so excellent. And for our listeners, I just want to give a few stats that are out there that are collected by Environment America and a couple of other different agencies. One, approximately 50 billion plastic water bottles are consumed annually in the USA. This is 137 million per day. And 60 million are thrown away daily because less than 1 in 4 makes it to a recycling stream. Here's some more scary things. Americans throw out 100 billion plastic bags per year. That's 20% of the global total. That's 300 bags per person per year. We
Wow.
throw out 5 pounds of trash a day, 1 pound of which is plastic. And here's this for all our iced coffee lovers, we throw out 500 million plastic straws per day. This could fill 50,000 school buses. So
Yeah,
we
that's
got a
crazy.
problem, right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's absolute insanity. And I look at this and, talking about like where that environmental piece came in. I grew up in Canada, and so we've been using canvas bags since, pretty much the dawn of time in Canada, cloth bags and things. We didn't really get into that whole plastic thing. And as a teenager, I chained myself to old growth forests in Northern Ontario and did mayoral sit ins and all of this to protest clear cutting and all these things that we needed to create more sustainable opportunities. I compost like the kids just like oh my god, like they're used to it now, but and it doesn't smell, you just have to get used to it. I was a compost queen teaching composting in my summers as an intern, so I'm totally down for this. So talk to us about some of the big innovations that Givr Packaging is bringing to this industry because my god, they're needed.
Yeah, we do a lot of business in just sort of corrugated and folding carton. And so what we are doing is we are offering a pathway for some of the new sustainable alternatives to gain traction more quickly than if they just were selling their own customers. So, we have, and I'm not saying we are a huge driver of their sales, but for this example, we have Cruise Foam, and it's a foam that replaces EPS, and it uses upcycled food waste
Oh.
like shrimp and crab chitin. It's pretty cool. And so, we are giving those companies a foothold in traction because we're now offering that to all of our customers. And so we try to make a lower friction pathway for any sustainable option that our customers may need. Another one that I'm excited about, I can't talk too much about it, but we have turned away business for acetate windows because we don't sell plastic windows in folding carton. There are a couple new alternatives out there that we're pursuing where we would be able to provide the same aesthetic for a quote unquote plastic window, but it's a biopolymer. Um, and so we are able to offer somewhat of a captive audience for these new upstart sustainable options to get in front of customers that have some scale that would be harder to reach if you were just cold calling them.
So a couple of things. One, with the acetate windows, why can't we use spring roll wrapping paper? Like it's rice paper mixed with some polymer that creates a little more stability because if it gets wet, it starts to get soft, and that's not
Mhm.
a good thing. But I mean, there's got to be options like that from other industries, right? Adjacency learnings, and
Yeah,
like you're the non-linear thinker.
yeah, there are. So, there's PLA, which is a lactic acid polymer. The real issue is with the the quote unquote recyclable biopolymers, they are problematic to the core recycling streams. So
Mm,
like PLA, when it gets in with like a, a, a non-PLA plastic stream, can cause issues and make it so that an entire quote unquote batch is garbage, because
mm.
PLA has different, different melting properties and such. So it doesn't make a seamless recycling stream unless you collect PLA all by itself, which is very difficult to do. So with biopolymers, you really need something that is biodegradable so that it can end up in landfill and then it will degrade on its own so that it doesn't have to be separated, collected, and reprocessed. So to your point, those alternatives are out there. It just becomes a collection and recycling issue. Um, and I'm not smart enough to solve that one.
I'd love to meet the person who is, because it drives me crazy. We put all the recycling out. Like it said, I was in Canada and I introduced, through the government. It was my job. It's not like I was the sole reason for this. I implemented
Mhm.
the composting collection and the recycling when it was new. So, 1,000 years ago when dinosaurs were still on the earth, right? And I was doing this as a summer internship and teaching people all that, trying to get people to manage and sort their recyclables for single stream. It was a nightmare. And then here I see it, I'm in Jersey. They just collect it with the trash. Like, so you feel good. You're like, oh, I'm recycling, but you're not really, because it's all going into the waste anyway. Why
Yep.
can't we solve that problem, Jeremy?
That comes down to a commodity price thing. That's how we are here in Brevard County. Everything gets collected in different bins and dumped in a different part of the landfill. Um, so it comes down to, we see this sometimes with paper. There was a period of time in the teens, the 2000s, like 2016, 17 period of time, when old corrugated boxes, OCC, were like $30 a ton. Historically, they've been as high as like $200 a ton, and now they're like 130. But they were low. Like China stopped taking them, so the commodity price was super low. So where you had an entire industry set up to collect and resell that to paper mills, there just wasn't any money to it. So those
Mm.
boxes were just going to landfill. And because so little plastic is actually collected and recycled, it's like 6 or 7%. There's like
Yeah.
a pretty minimal financial incentive for people to do it. And the market for recycled plastic, I think, is growing, but it's not, it's still not that of virgin plastic. So I think it's just a matter of like there's no financial incentive, honestly.
Ay, ay, ay. So in the meantime, everybody should use their silicone straws. That's what I do. I've got nice big fat silicone straw. It looks
Yeah,
like the
and
old
these
McDonald's straws.
aluminum
Yes.
cans too. Drink sodas out of aluminum cans instead of bottles. It's like that's one of the choices I've tried to make is like if there's an aluminum can option, that's what I'm doing. In fact, at our office, we stock water in cans because plastic bottles just kind of piss me off.
Yeah. Bingo, bingo. And I see you're drinking a Coke Zero there. I was in the
Yeah,
South for a long time. Breakfast of champions, right? That's how I
that's
start
right.
my day.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
little fridge cig is what we call it. Fridge cigarette.
I love it. Well, on cigarettes, I worked for Philip Morris for many years, and then I wouldn't
Mm,
be able to share anyway the amount of corrugated cardboards and this and that. But the efforts that went into the design and packaging really led me to believe that you had to be operating at whatever the crazy scale, right? You can think of how many cigarette packages per day Philip Morris produces.
yeah.
But what I've seen with you and Givr Packaging is that you have solutions that are tailored to even smaller markets. Did I get that right?
hmm Yeah. So when we first started, our entire value proposition was to give small startups the level of service and technical horsepower that big companies have. So when I left my previous company, I was working with big, Fortune 100 companies, and I saw how they got a lot of attention, but I would see these smaller leads come in, and they would not get the same attention. And so I was like, what if we can offer that across the board by leveraging internally a lot of technology, but also just like to make these small brands feel really important. And so that has been a consistent thread for us. We have always nurtured very small companies from companies that need one box. In fact, we have, a few every
Wow.
week that are like one box. We need 5 boxes, all the way up to customers that are placing six-figure POs with us, and they're shipping to 6 locations all across the country. Um, and some of those, I need 5 boxes, I need 50 boxes, grow into I need 10 truckloads, which is also fun. Um, so yeah, we tried to meet every customer where they are and not say, when they say what's your MOQ and I say one, a lot of times they're shocked. Um, but yeah, we try to meet every customer wherever they are.
That's incredible. Do you do that as a personal philosophy as a small business owner because you have felt passed over as small business? Like, talk to us a little bit about the psychology behind that, because I think it's really important as small business owners slash entrepreneurs that we help each other out. Like, where's your head at with that? Why did you choose to do that?
There's a couple things. One, that's how I was sort of brought up in the industry. I had some good mentors, and their entire philosophy was like, do the things that other people won't, and that will set you apart. So at the last company I was with, we would say you can order one box. It may be expensive, but we'll do it for you. And our competition would say, there's a 2 truckload minimum. So
Mm.
that sort of set us apart. It's a little more complicated to take care of those customers, but not enough that you should shy away from it. And then also there's the fact that like I don't want it's a personal thing. I don't want this customer to go to company X and get sold a bunch of crap they don't need, and have to buy 5,000 boxes, knowing the salesperson knows that they're probably going to have to change something at 2,000 boxes in. So I'm sort of trying to act like the protector of these brands, like protecting them from the industry, if that makes sense. I don't want them to fall victim to like some savvy sales guy or sales girl that's going to sort of give them what they ask for, but also not tell them what's also available. And so that's a through line to our business and inside the company. Everybody knows like we are going to be transparent top to bottom. We will quote this same thing 6 different ways if it gives the customer the information they need to make decisions that are good now and in 5 years. So it's a mixture of both.
Ooh, excellent. And I'll segue that into how so many small business owners are getting really, like, we'll use the word scammed. They're
Mhm.
sold a bill of goods. Hey, if you give us X thousand dollars per month, we're going to help you go to market. We're going to generate leads. We're going to make you so you're painted all over the internet. You're going to be number one in Google searches, blah, 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 blah. Queue up all these. We're going to stack your calendar so you have tons of meetings with prospects. And then months and months and months go by and you end your 6 month contract and you're like, wow, that was a lot of money and I had one meeting.
Mhm.
So, what are you doing to go to market and avoid some of those scams that are out there?
Well, I didn't avoid all of those scams because I did a lot of those things in the
No one
first
has.
3 or 4 years. Um, so I think at a certain point you get a feel and you start asking the right questions from your vendors that are pitching you. Um, but sometimes you just pick the wrong one. We work with a marketing company now called Your Design Base, who is probably the 12th marketing company we've worked with in 8 years. But we've been working with them for like 3 years because they're good. But the marketing for some reason is one of those areas that's like full of companies that don't deliver. It just, whatever reason, it's like a really tough space where it's full of people that just can't deliver. Um, so to answer your question, how do we avoid those? I think you get a bit more savvy to ask the right questions, but also I try to limit the exposure, um, by not signing contracts, like long-term contracts. Um, and I am transparent. I'm like, you have 3 months to like make me more money than I'm spending, or it's over. Um, and we've done that. We've had a vendor who we worked with for a year. It was month to month, so there was no contract, but we worked with them for a year. And at the end of that year, we spent the same amount of money that we made. And I was just like, this makes no sense for us. So we fired them. And then 3 months later, they came back and they were like, we think we can do better. And I told them, like, if you charge us this amount, it makes sense for us financially. I was just transparent with them. And so they did that. And now, it's putting us in the black. But I think just accept the fact that sometimes you're just going to get got, especially if you're not an expert in that field. Like it's very unlikely that a box company is going to get one over on me, but it's pretty likely that a marketing company is because that's just not my language, you know?
Well, it's also that's kind of the point of marketing, right? That you put the message out that's spun, air quotes for those
Mhm.
not having the visual experience, that is spun in a certain way that compels you to take action, right? That's what marketing people do. So they know how to tap into the psyche, the FOMO, all the rest of that of the entrepreneur and small business owner. And it's like, are
Right.
you struggling with lead generation?
Right.
We have some ideas, right? And you're like, yeah, I am. How do I do this? So
Right.
switching gears from that, what is it that you, as Givr Packaging's founder, struggle with the most or want to share about challenges in running and operating your business? Like I said, you've crossed the 5 year mark, so congratulations, because few
Thank
do.
you.
You're in the 8 year mark now, pushing for the big 10-year milestone, which is I think less than 5% of businesses. So you're in the running
Hmm.
there. What are the things that you like day to day, like, oh yeah, this is tough for me, that you can share with our audience to give them insights into how you overcome these issues?
The most frustrating issue that we have had to deal with that I have only recently solved, like literally January of this year, we finally got a process in place to solve this issue, was getting paid by customers. Um, 98% of our customers pay on time and are great. But there's that 2%, and I think that metric is across all industry. There's going to be 2% of customers that always just try to screw you. Um, so what I would tell startup companies is to get a good credit application drawn up by an attorney, which is something we didn't do for too long. And if you are doing B2B sales and you can afford it, get receivables insurance on any like really big POs that you get. Um, because it will help you sleep at night if they decide not to pay you, that you can process that receivable and at least get some of the money back.
Which would be key. I mean, as is within my business, dears, we do a lot of like training, change management, process improvement, these kinds of things. And many clients are reluctant to even pay a deposit up front. But if they do, okay. And then you're in that game where you got to show some deliverables. And as soon as you show enough deliverables, they're like, yeah, see ya. I've had to write off, I'd say 5 to 10% bad debt
Hmm.
not received. And that sucks because you
It
work really
does.
hard, you tie up your people and yourself, and then you're like, hello, dude, you need to pay me. And then they
Yeah.
disappear. And you don't want to get in the whole legal blah, blah, blah. You send a nasty gram from your attorney, and then like, enough.
You got to get a good attorney that wants that like actually enjoys litigating. So we have as every company does, we have like four attorneys, and we have one that is our litigator that eats and sleeps and breathes litigation. So you have to have that person in your corner, and they're hard to find. Usually, it's a referral from an attorney you trust, but you have to have that. You have to be able to pull that lever because everybody that is screwing you has probably done this to others, and they know that
Right.
most people aren't going to sue. But you got to have
Right.
somebody that's so mean you won't even want to pick up the phone.
See, I need a bulldog. That's what I need. There's a lot of things I want to go after. I have
I can
nice
refer you.
attorneys.
Are you in the States now? Or are you in Canada?
No, I'm in Jersey.
Oh, that's right. You said that. All right. I can email you somebody.
See, this is what it's about. I love these conversations because I always learn something. And that's the thing, I try to provide value too. But for the most part, it's like I get all these nuggets of wisdom and ideas from the guests that I have on the show. That's why our listeners love it too, right? For the same reasons. All right, let's get into some of the things about what you see small business owners, even large business owners, getting wrong with respect to your domain in packaging. What are they doing wrong, Jeremy?
Getting into custom stuff too early. So, we have a certain segment of our customer that we say don't print your boxes because you don't need it. So they're B2B or they're industrial sales, and the founder comes in and they're very excited about getting their logo and this and that printed. And I'll tell them, listen, just get plain boxes and put a sticker on it. Because you can use that sticker in other areas of your business, but you don't have to invest in a box that's twice as expensive just to have print on it. which is what makes me one of the worst salespeople in packaging because I'll tell them, don't do this. Um, and also, a lot of companies don't offer the same things. Like we offer digital printing, which gives us super flexibility for low quantities. So we can do one, we can do three, we can do 11, we can do 25. Um, Startups will often not have that option presented to them because it's not a super common technology yet in the industry. So they will fall victim to their sales guy saying, or girl, I always say sales guy because I'm one, but their salesperson saying, "Hey, our MOQ for this is 7,500," and then they invest, $10,000 in boxes when, first of all, they're just addressing the market and they don't know what they're going to have to change or adjust. So we get a ton of customers coming to us and say, "Hey, I need to change my box. I have, 3,600 in inventory. Is there anything you can do in terms of like making an insert for this or like using it?" And we'll always accommodate whatever we can do. But I see a lot of customers fall victim to the quote MOQ fallacy. Like just because one person's MOQ is X doesn't mean that everybody's MOQ is that. So shop it out, shop around.
And that's so key. I love hearing this, that you genuinely care about customers and where they should invest their time. I've seen this a lot when you talk about that emotional connection to a logo and to a brand. And as a woman, I've seen it in my female founder friends where we get more emotionally involved, just in general. I know everything's a bell curve, and some people are I get it, I
Mhm.
get it. And there's the whole continuum there from, gender and non-binary. Okay, all that aside, what I've seen with my female founder friends is that and I'll put myself in that bucket, we tend to get so wrapped around the aesthetic, the meaning of the brand and the look that will overlook the potential cost and downstream negatives because we're just so committed to having it look a certain way and be experienced a certain way. Have you seen that as well?
Yeah, unfortunately, we have, and I've seen that go all the way bad. I've seen customers go out of business where
Good.
they spend a lot of money on packaging against advice because, and I'm not going to push you into not doing it. I'm just going to give you the advice like, hey, I would do it this other way. And then, they end up going out of business, and it's sad, but ultimately, all we can do is provide the insight. Um, and at the end of the day, so not every, business isn't for everybody. There's a reason that whatever 5% make it to 10 years or whatever it is.
Right.
We're going to
No.
try our best, but ultimately we'll process the PO if you send it to us, after doing our best to convince you otherwise.
Well, and there you go. With, spoken as a guy with a degree in paper science, what do you think needs to change in business schools? What's missing from the curriculum?
Hmm. I mean, I didn't go to business school. I just sort of learned the hard way. Um, the thing I see, you know what? The thing I see from we've had several MBA interns. Um, they're just like, how do I say this diplomatically?
Take your time, because and
It
I didn't mean for it to be a loaded question, but
No, no, no. It's
I do
great. It's a
ask it
great
a lot
question.
because there's gaps, right, that we're seeing both in the workforce coming in, and we're seeing just people are going to business school and they come out and they think, yeah, I'm all that in a bag of potato chips, but wait a minute, you haven't even learned XYZ that's critical. So
Yeah, the thing I
understood.
think that an MBA coming out of school without any experience in any industry is, like a giraffe on roller skates, but the expectations are higher. So you get an MBA, when I get an MBA intern, I expect them to come in and be asking all of the questions that they need to fill the gaps that they think they have. When you get one that has come from an undergraduate right to an MBA and they're sort of fresh out of school with an
Hmm.
MBA, it is almost useless, in my opinion. They simply do not have any perspective on what actually goes on in business. They're probably very good at Excel, um, but they're not going to bring a ton of value until they decouple from that MBA and get into the business doing a job. So, like getting into sales, getting into operations, doing something else, so that as they uncover problems, they can bring the knowledge they learned from their MBA to bear to solve problems. But at the core of an MBA, you are uncovering and diagnosing and solving problems in business. And without any perspective that you've gained from working a job, you you have a rocket with no fuel.
Right. And I think your description of a giraffe on roller skates, like for the first time, right, is so apropos because the fall is also very hard. I've seen
Mhm.
that with a lot of interns, and they come in thinking, "Hey, I'm this," and then you're like, "Not so much," and that's a big blow to their egos that they can't handle, and so they crash. And so you've got to be there to
Mhm.
really nurture them and move them along. All right, as we're winding down our podcast here, talk to us about where folks can find you.
Mhm. All of our socials are at GivrPack, GivrPack. That's our URL too, GivrPack.com. And then my personal Instagram is Box Builder with no E. Just like Giver has no E, Box Builder has no E.
Just to make the spelling complicated. See, you're a
Yes.
marketing nightmare, Jeremy. I have to tell you. As a marketeer, it's like, oh no. I had a client, piece for piece. And I'm like, how is that spelled? She's like, well, it's the Peace with the four, then the Piece. I'm like, but it might be the other way around, right? Anyway, complicated. We've lost internet here. All right, Jeremy. Well, that was a first. And as they say, there's a first time for everything. So Zoom spazzed. But here we are as we wrap up the podcast. Our signature question. If we got to look into your closet and there was a piece of clothes, a shoes, footwear, something that personified who you are, Jeremy Bauer, founder of Givr Packaging, what are we looking at?
There's a shirt that has, we actually sell it on our website. Um, it has my face on the left breast. It has a QR code on the back surrounded by words, do you owe me money? And on the left breast surrounding my face is the phrase, show me your box.
Okay, in 250 guests, I think that's the winner. You have just like ding, 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 hit the winning because that is meta and that is funny as hell. Like, oh my goodness, you just made my day.
Shoot me an email with your address, I'll send you one.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, I would love that. Then I could probably wear it. We get your podcast aired. All right. So, folks, thanks so much for listening to this, tuning in to Small Biz Stories. We appreciate your support. Jeremy Bauer, founder of Givr Packaging. We also really appreciate your insights and taking your time today, plus suffering through our technical glitch with us. So, Jeremy, thanks so much for being on the show. And how about that fantastic intro by Touch Circle?